I did not see any anger or bitterness. Those are your words. I didn't describe them on the part of Mr. Schiavo. This was a split-second decision that had to be made by Mr. Schiavo, having heard from the hospice nurses, you better come right now. If you want to be with her before she dies, you better come right now. And oh, by the way, your brother-in-law just got into a dispute with the police outside of her room, and do you want him to be there with the police officer? And he made a split-second decision then to say no. You have to understand, Mr. Schiavo probably hasn't slept for days himself, and I don't think it was a decision made by him out of spite, out of animus, but out of regard for Terri. I think he appropriately decided that she had a right to spend her final moments on Earth without a policeman standing next to her and the possibility of an altercation in her room.
So there were no police in the room when she passed?
That maybe the whole family and Michael Schiavo could have all been there at the same time?
Well, I'm saying, number one, the parents were not there. Were not there at the time. And I'm saying, I don't know what would have happened. The only question, the only point that I made is that certainly the very harsh and hateful words that we heard from many people over the television, and especially from Father Pavone, certainly was not constructive in leading to any sort of reconciliation, which perhaps may have made that possible.
So there were no.
Yes.
Can you describe within that room sort of a fuller description of what the colors of the lighting was, the music? Could you hear the protesters outside? Was there music on? Some of the essential elements that were inside that room?
Yeah. Terri did have, at the time of her death, the stuffed tabby kitty under one arm. She had other stuffed animals around her. Some beautiful soul just sent us for Michael a gorgeous bouquet of flowers with lilies and white roses and red roses. Just a gorgeous display of flowers yesterday that we brought to the hospice with us. Whoever you are, we thank you. Those were by Terri's bedside at the time of her death. There were other flowers in her room. Music. Music was playing, very soft, soothing music. For a good part of the day, it was not playing at the time of her death. Her death occurred still in the earlier morning hours. The hospice facility itself was relatively quiet. We did not hear any protesters outside. It was a very peaceful and calm setting.
Have you been able to hear protesters offering over the last couple of days at other points when you visited from within her room?
No.
So you are an advocate for Michael, but certainly you can understand that the family also is angry.
Yes.
In their own personal form of balance and all of this. Can you talk a little bit about the sympathetic point of view for what they went through as well? You talked very sympathetically about Michael.
Well, I started my comments by saying that my heart goes out to the Schiavo family and to the Schindler family. Losing your daughter, losing your sibling, losing your wife under any circumstances is just a heart-wrenching, and difficult thing. And I'm sure it has been very difficult for the Schindlers and difficult for all those concerned. As I said before, my condolences go out to them, and I'm sure I'm sure across the country and across the world that people will be praying. I hope praying for all the participants in this case.
In the room when she passed, you
no.
Ordered them out?
Well, no. The police were never in the room. The police were stationed outside of Mrs. Schiavo's room. The The only time that I can tell you that we saw the police inside the room in that 26, 27-hour period, I believe was last night when they had what's called a lockdown. They had a breach of their perimeter, and when they have a breach of the perimeter, a officer comes inside, closes the door, and stands against the door. To my knowledge, that was the only time that an officer was actually inside the room.
Where was this alleged dispute between Bobby Schindler and the police?
Well, I've answered that about 2 or 3 times.
Schindler the
Yes.
other night looked for the cameras at the hospice and said, Michael and Jody, when you have your kids, please give us back our child. At the end, was there ever any consideration on Michael Schiavo's part to maybe do that?
No, because this case, as this was Terri's death, a death that she deserved to have with dignity, this was also about her wishes. And that has been the guiding principle in this case from day one, that she had a right to express her medical treatment choice. She expressed her wishes, and she had a right to have that decision carried out. And as the courts have said over and over again, the case was not about her parents, was not about her husband, but it was about Terri. And for that reason, no, Mr. Schiavo did not consider that.
Can you tell us about me?
Yes.
What will be Terri Schiavo's legacy?
I don't know. It's being so close to this and having it having really no wider perspective, it's hard to say. I certainly think that Mrs. Schiavo's death, which all of us have experienced one way or another, has led to a family dialogue, a community dialogue, and a national dialogue, and perhaps a worldwide dialogue about death, dying, the dying process, the rights of the individual, the interests of society, how those are balanced, and how these decisions can be made and implemented. I believe I said at a prior press conference that death is one of the last taboo subjects in our society. We don't like to think about it, contemplate it, and certainly not plan for our own death. And I think one of her legacies may be that finally we have matured as a society and come to grips with this question and can look it straight on and start to deal with it in a responsible manner.
Follow-up question: is it your hope that this situation may present other families who are going through it? And out of curiosity, in terms of living wills, can you tell us, does Michael have one?
Yes, Michael has a living will. I have a living will. I've had for years. You know, the law gives you the right to make your own medical treatment choices. That's one of the most personal and private decisions that you can make in your lifetime. At what point do you say medical treatment is enough and I don't want any more? And this case demonstrates more than anything could demonstrate that if you don't take personal responsibility and make your wishes known and do that in a formal sense, then your wishes may not be carried out, not only to your own personal harm, but to the destruction of your family and loved ones. So this is a clarion call to everyone to make their wishes known in an appropriate way. Yes.
Can you tell us what time her body was removed and who was with her at that time? Did Michael go with her? And if was it removed funeral?
I would say probably, and you know, you have to remember I haven't slept in about, I didn't sleep at all last night, and I kind of feel more like a hospice worker than I do an attorney at the moment. But I would say it was at least a couple of hours after Mrs. Schiavo's death that family members had an opportunity to be with the body. Her body was washed and prepared. Hospice held their ceremony before removal. So I would say we're looking at perhaps 11 or 11:30 that it was removed by the medical examiner's office. Yes.
Is the plan still that her body or her ashes would be buried in the Philadelphia suburbs?
That's my understanding.
And Do you know if the cremation will occur here before?
Yes, that's my information. Yes.
As you know, some people regard this not as Terri's wishes being observed as an act of murder. I'm wondering, could you tell us, is Mr. Schiavo concerned that someone may now come after him or his girlfriend or his children to even explore?
I believe it's obviously all our hopes that with Mrs. Schiavo's passing, that the best legacy for Mrs. Schiavo is to have everyone peaceably move on with their lives. I can tell you that Mr. Schiavo acted in utmost good faith and concern for his wife, as found by the courts over and over again, and I'll simply leave it that no one expects that to occur, and obviously we all hope that it doesn't.
Sir, you mentioned that Michael Schiavo has a living will. Are you at liberty to say what his wishes are as expressed in that living will?
No, I can't.
George, can you tell me, has your client, Michael Schiavo, or yourself, been approached about movie deals, book deals? If it hasn't happened now, are either one of you open to doing that and being compensated financially for what's happened here?
I'll answer it in this way. As early as the first trial, which was in January of 2000, we received on behalf of Mr. Schiavo some inquiries. Over the years, some of those type of inquiries have filtered through, and our response has always been that we're not interested in discussing this. It's an inappropriate subject, and we haven't discussed it or entertained entertained any inquiries or offers. As to what may happen in the future, I don't know.
Are you saying that the Schindlers actually wanted to, have some kind of movie made, or they were actually interested in doing something?
I'm not saying that at all. The question was regarding Mr. Schiavo. Yes.
Can you tell us about Mr. Schiavo's living conditions at the hospice and where they were, what they were like?
Well, it was, in fairness to hospice, it was a very nice room. Obviously small, a tiny bathroom, just one room that had a bed in it and a couch and a chair. But of course, Michael has been living there for a good period of the time with one or more of his brothers for the last day or so with myself and Ms. Bushnell, and so it sort of looked like after a while everyone was camping, as you might expect. We were just, Mr. Schiavo was just very grateful to the hospice facility to give him the opportunity to be so close by Terri during this 2-week process.
What was its proximity to Terri's room?
It was down the hall.
Can you tell us where Michael is today and what his plans might be for the next 2 days?
No, I believe that he's left the hospice facility, and I have no comment on his. I have no comment on his current location or immediate plans.
George, let me ask you this if I could, please. You're saying, again, if the priest, I forgot this man's name, hadn't used words, as you said, were so venomous, that maybe Michael's heart may have been moved a little bit to do something a little different, maybe a little compensation, a little moving here and there between both parties. But the converse of that was it Michael that was spiteful or held a grudge and said, you know what, you've been awfully nasty to me. Why should I do anything for you?
I don't think the latter. I don't think the latter is the case. See, the thing about spirit and mercy is that they transcend the mind. That's the nature of spirit. It transcends bitterness. It transcends enmity. And all I'm saying is that it was unfortunate in this situation that through the priests that they chose to be with them, the possibility of that occurring was minimized. I'll just take one more question.
Were the
Yes.
Schindlers allowed to take any kind of a memento, like a lock of hair or anything from Terri?
Yes, we were. Mr. Schiavo was asked after Terri died and before the Schindlers went in to be with Terri, whether the Schindlers could remove items from the room and take things from the room, and he said yes, they could take what they wanted, and I don't know if they availed themselves of that or took any items, but he had no objection to that and honored that request. Okay, thank you.
All right, you've just heard a pretty lengthy news conference by George Felos, who represents Michael Schiavo, Terri Schiavo's